Right, we start Mr. Shem, Kelim, Perik, Yud, Zayin. So it's Kelim, Perik, Yud, Zayin, Mishnah Aleph. This is the longest Perik in the Masechta, and in fact it's Perik, Yud, Zayin, and it's got Yud, Zayin, Mishnayos in it. What's also interesting about this Perik is that from Mishnah Daled from Mishnah Hey, in fact, to Mishnah Yud Daled, the Mishnah actually leaves Masechta Kelim completely and goes into topics which are shas wide. They're all to do with shiurim, all the famous dinim of shiurim, and they're absolutely quite fascinating. But let's start. Says the Mishnah, Kol klei bale botim shiuron berimoinim. We are in the bit of the Masechta which is dealing with the section of Kelim which is Kli Eitz, which we know is together with the Kli Etzem and Kli Oir. And the Mefarshim say that this rule actually applies specifically to that group, because we've had before that Kli Cheres and Kli Matches have different rules for determining when the Kli is broken. With Kli Eitz, the rule is, and Etzem and Oir, Shi'uron Berimoinim. Now first of all, it says the word Bale Botim. We're saying here, this Mishnah, that Kli Eitz have a general shear for a hole. In other words, if the hole is a Moitzi Rimoin, that's when the Kli is considered to be broken, irrelevant of what the original use of the Kli was. In other words, for Kli Eitz, we're a little bit more machmir. We're saying because Eitz is something much more standard than your matches, therefore even if a Kli is made for something smaller, if the hole is not yet big enough that a rimoin would come out, we're saying that the Kli Eitz would still be used for that bigger purpose and therefore would not consider to be broken. So why does it say Bale Botim only? So Tosis Yom Tov quote brings from Rashi that if we are dealing with a Kli of an Uman, of a professional person, which he intends selling, then the shear isn't a Moitzi Rimoin. In fact, then the shear is a Nekef Kol, so the smallest hole renders it broken because you don't sell a broken Kli. So as a general rule, Kol Klei Bale Botim, Shurim Berimoinim, that means they only become, this is a big chumrah, they only become Tohor if the hole is big enough to be a Moitzi Rimoin. Rabbi Lezer Omer Bameh Shehein. Rabbi Lezer is saying a kula. He's saying those kelim which are made for fruits smaller than Rimoinim, for instance, if you have a Kli which is made for Ta'enim, then the shear is b'mer shein, the usage of that particular Kli. As soon as the nekev is a moitzi ta'ena, although it's not yet a moitzi Rimoin, it is already tohor. Then the next bit of the Mishnah, according to the Rambam, this is the Pshat of the Baal Tanura, actually is the Chitta of the Tanakama is not just Rabbi Eliezer. Kupos Haganonim. We're now talking about kelim which are absolutely miyuchad for one specific purpose only, not just generally used for ta'enim like we mentioned before. These are kupos haganonim, baskets used by gardeners. They're not used for anything else. They're only used to transport vegetables and things that you want to plant. In such a case, where a keli is only used for a tashmish miyuchad, then we go lakula and we say the hole doesn't have to be a moitzi rimmon to make it toyer. Then everybody agrees shiuron ba'aguda shel yarok, the shear of that particular box is the size of a bundle of vegetables used for planting, even though it's smaller than a moitzi rimmon. Similarly, shel bale botim beteven, if it's the box specifically used at home by bale botim for carting around straw, then the shear is however much straw one takes in one go. If the hole is big enough so that you can't use it for straw, only then it's tahor. Shel balonin, the one used for bath attendants, they use these boxes to carry around gavova, are little bits of teven, of straw, with grit, used for fuel for heating up the baths. Then that particular box only becomes tahor when the hole is big enough that you can't actually carry gavova in it. Rabbi Shua, kulam berimoinim, this shear is always a rimmon. It doesn't matter how meyuchad something is. Rabbi Shua is actually very machmir. He's saying no matter how meyuchad something is, you've always got to wait till it is a moitzi rimoin to say now the kli is tahor.